Shalom, everybody. Thank you for coming. It's nice to see you all here. Tonight, our topic is the Nephilim, the Anakim, and ancient aliens. This is a popular topic, and I found as a rabbi, it's probably one of the top 3 areas in which people ask me questions. I plan on speaking tonight in 3 areas. One, from a biblical perspective, what do the scriptures say in the Bible, if anything, about this topic? Secondly, what does it mean for us today in this generation? And thirdly, what, if anything, can we do about it? Because let's face it, the existence of aliens or giants in ancient times, it really wouldn't mean anything, and we really wouldn't need to be sitting here talking about it if it didn't have some bearing on today. Now, is there such a thing as intelligent life out there? This is a question that many in our time have been asking. There isn't any irrefutable proof out there. I say irrefutable because some people will say there is proof, and to some extent it's coming down to whether you believe it or not, but there are certain things that are irrefutable. Number one, that in the ancient times, in the time of classical civilization, Egypt, Greece, Rome, and possibly before then, there clearly were structures that were built on planet Earth that to this day we can't explain how they were built. From what we know about the technology that they would have had in those days, chief among them is the Great Pyramid at Giza and the other structures in the Giza Plateau, the other pyramids and the Sphinx. Now, it is amazing that there are literally hundreds of other pyramids around the world, and some of them that are in Mexico, that were built by the Mayans and the Aztecs, are almost as incredible as the ones that were built in Egypt. Now, I am not going to sit here and get into all the details of those things and other structures, Stonehenge, for example, and other monolithic structures that are just peppered all around the globe that were built thousands of years ago, and we can't figure out how they built them. In many cases, they are amazingly aligned to the stars, amazingly aligned to certain constellations or planetary movements, or on a certain day the sun comes through a window, and there's secret tunnels that are built inside of these pyramids that somehow align on specific days with the sun and other planets and positioning of the constellations. I'm not going to get into all the details of that, but there's just abundance of information out there on these things. If you'd like to know more, research the pyramids, research monolithic structures, and you can find that out for yourself if you haven't already, because it's not my area of expertise. I'm a Bible teacher, first and foremost. But in the Bible, we keep coming across these things. Now, as I said, it's not my area of expertise. I'm not an archaeologist. I'm not a UFO hunter. I'm not with the CIA. If I was, I'd have to kill you. I don't know what the government knows. I'm not getting into conspiracy theories and all that. There's an interesting amount of information out there on those things. Find out for yourself. I encourage that. But we would be remiss if we didn't pay attention to the fact that there are amazing structures that are thousands of years old that were built in ancient times with technology that we don't know that they had. And so that historical fact in and of itself alerts us to the possibility that there may have been higher life forms, more intelligent life forms visiting Earth and intermingling, possibly collaborating with, or even manipulating human beings. And so we find evidence of this in the Bible as well. Now, chief among this evidence is the fact of a certain archangel who is most commonly known today as Hasatan in Hebrew, or Satan, which Hasatan means the accuser or the opposer. He's also commonly referred to as the enemy. And what little we know about him is that he apparently was an archangel named Lucifer who was created by God, was clearly a higher intelligence, clearly was part of the angelic race of beings that, by the way, we know from the Bible exist. They are clearly more intelligent, clearly more advanced than human beings. We see repeated incidents in the Bible of angels visiting the earth. They visited Abraham. They helped Moses and the Israelites come up out of Egypt and get through the desert during 40 years. They helped Jacob. They visited the father of John the Baptist when he was ministering in the temple as a priest. There was one that visited Miriam, who became the mother of Yeshua. And Daniel had interaction with the angelic race. There is an angelic race. They're interstellar travelers of some fourth dimensional consciousness that we're not aware. Except theoretically, we know, since Einstein anyway, that it's possible to travel through time and space at light speed and come out in different places in the universe as if no time ever passed. And we don't know how this is done, but we know that it can be done, and that angels likely have this capability, especially archangels, to just appear and disappear. And they've done it. We see it in the Bible. So Satan, as I was saying, was an archangel. He fell out of God's will, and he became the architect of a movement in which apparently others of the angelic race followed him into this idea that God was not God, that the one God, the creator of the universe, was not omnipotent, that he was not the only power in the universe. And Lucifer, as he now is known as Satan, has tried to establish this as a fact, and he failed. He was defeated by Yeshua HaMashiach. Done. Defeated. Although, and as he's called the prince of this world in Scripture, it still doesn't seem that way. In our natural human state, universally, it seems that this world is ruled by one other than God. And this delusion that has come upon mankind has been hoisted upon us by none other than Lucifer, working in collaboration with his hosts. So there we have this, the whole satanic theory in the Bible. It's not a theory, but it's a reality. This, I should say, the satanic story in the Bible is proof positive that there have been angelic visitors to planet Earth. And they've come here intent upon ruling the world. That's why the New Testament calls Satan the prince of this world. Yeshua referred to him as prince of this world. Although, as I said, he's been defeated. And the actual King of Kings and Lord of Lords is the one who defeated him, Mashiach Yeshua himself. Now, I don't want to get off topic, but that's first and foremost. That right there tells us that there has been something going on with beings from someplace other than Earth. Now, some people never thought of it that way, or even struggle with that idea if they're, people that are like Bible followers, because, the sort of the orthodox view of angels are sort of like these ethereal beings that are not really beings, but they're thought of as spirits. And I went to great lengths in my last webinar 2 weeks ago to make this point, that God is a spirit, and God is the only spirit. He is an omnipresent spirit. Omnipresent meaning he permeates the universe. His presence is in all parts of the created universe. And there is no other spirit. Now, I know that's difficult for some to grasp because of this, especially in Christianity. If you came out of that, this idea that angels are spirits and that they sort of permeate certain places in the way that God does, but it's not true. Only God can do that. Angels are more technologically advanced. They're a higher intelligence. And they, as I said, are able to operate in fourth dimensional consciousness, which is beyond time and space. They can move beyond time and space and enter and disappear because they know how to do that. And we don't yet, but we're getting there. And I'll say this lastly about angels is that human beings are destined to rule over angels. We are destined to rule planet Earth, and they actually will serve us, not the reverse. Okay, now, enough about Satan and the fallen angels, which are also called demons, by the way. Let's move on to some more about what the Bible may say in this regard. And I'm going to, I have so many scriptures. There are just so many. And I don't want to be one of these guys who just like sits here and just rattles off a bunch of scriptures, because I think I would probably bore you if I did that. But I'm going to pull up a few, and I'm going to read a bunch of them, because it's so important in this webinar to lay the foundation. Some of y'all like to take notes with these kinds of things, and maybe you might want to do that. Otherwise, just kick back and listen up. Gonna pull 2 or 3 of them up to share with you on the screen. And I'll start here with the most famous one on this topic, I think. Genesis 6:4. It says in the Torah, the Nephilim were on the earth in those days. Now, I'm just going to tell you what Nephilim means. It really means, literally, kind of means the fallen ones, but it's kind of become a buzzword for giants. The book of Enoch talks about these guys, these angels that were supposed to watch the earth, and they fell, and they're called the Watchers, and they fell and they mated with ordinary women. And that's exactly what it says here in the Bible. And the book of Enoch didn't quite make it into the Bible, so the authority of it is not quite on this level, but it's darn close. It almost made it in. And it is referred to in the Bible. So if you think the Bible is important as authority the way I do, then just note that Enoch was mentioned. There are things in Enoch are mentioned in the Bible. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward. What time does that refer to? Well, it doesn't say, but I'm going to show you. Whenever the sons of God, the B'nai Elohim. Now that is a Bible term that is often used to refer to the Malachim or angels. And it's also used in the New Testament to refer to the redeemed portion of mankind, sons and daughters of God, or B'nai Elohim. And this is Paul taught in the book of Romans. The Spirit of God bears witness that we are B'nai Elohim. We are children of God, sons of God. John 1 says that to all who received him, he gave authority to be called sons of God. You see, that refers to the redeemed portion of mankind, but also the angels are referred to as B'nai Elohim. And so that's what this is talking about. It's talking about angels that went into the daughters of men, and they were born children to them. They bore children. That's actually a typo there. Excuse me. They bore children to them. Those were the mighty men of old, men of renown. So that's the first reference to this kind of thing, okay? Then you move into the Torah, the Nephilim in Moses' time, a little deeper in the Torah. Numbers 13, when Israel went to spy out the land after God brought them across the Red Sea into the desert, go spy out the land. And so they did, and they were freaked out with what they saw, and they got discouraged. They didn't enter the land for 40 years. Here's why they got discouraged. They said, the land through which we passed to explore devours its residents. All the people we saw there are men of great size. We also saw there the Nephilim. Ah, there it is again, the Nephilim. See, the sons of Anak. Now that becomes another name for the giants, Anak. The Anakim, which is the plural, the sons of Anak, are from the Nephilim. That now we seemed like grasshoppers in our eyes as well as theirs. Here's another example from the book of Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy 2, 10, 11. And here Moses is recounting Israel's travels through the desert. And it's coming to the end of 40 years. They're getting ready to cross the Jordan. And he's talking about these people that lived in the area of Moab, which is modern day Jordan. And he says the Emim used to live there, a great and numerous people as tall as the Anakim. These people also are considered Rephaim, like the Anakim. But the Moabites call them Emim. You see all these different names for giants? Anakim, Rephaim, Emim. Another one is the Zuzim. That was something that they also called them. You see that here in Deuteronomy 2:20. It's also considered a land of Rephaim. The Rephaim used to live there, but the Ammonites call them Zamzumim, a great and numerous people as tall as the Anakim. This is long after the flood. That first scripture from Genesis, we were talking about the flood there. And okay, now I'm going to come back because I know you want to see my punum, my face again, don't you? Not really, but you're fixing to see it anyway. Oh, I got questions coming in. So if you want to ask questions, I'll do my best to get to them. You can chat with each other too if you're here registered, and you can submit questions in writing. If you're not registered, and just sit back and enjoy it. All right, now those were just a few of the scriptures, but I'm going to rattle off a few more here from my papers that I've written down. And you see that this thing, it wasn't just some offhand verse in the Bible. Now, if you consider the Bible authority, then this is all really important stuff. I know we've got a diverse group of people that follow these webinars, so I'm not trying to cram Bible down your throat, but Bible is a historically reliable archaeological tool. Everyone who does archaeology in the Middle East knows that. I probably don't have to convince you of that. Anyway, Deuteronomy 3:11, King Og of Bashan, he apparently had a bed that was 9 cubits, which is 13.5 feet. He was one of the giants, one of the Rephaim. It talks about, now we're going to get to the time of Joshua and Caleb. And it's interesting because Joshua and Caleb were the only two Jews who when they went to spy out the land, everybody got discouraged when they saw these giants, these Anakim. Joshua and Caleb did not. They were the only two Jews who said, we can take them. But, their voice did not prevail. And so it was, Israel had to wander in the desert for 40 years. But then at the end of 40 years, Joshua and Caleb are still around while everyone else has perished. And they're the two guys that really led the charge. Joshua was at the helm. He was the aluf, the general. Caleb was also a major leader who helped to lead the charge to overcome the people of the land. And you see in all of this that Joshua and Caleb, they went out and took down these Anakim, these giants that they had seen 40 years earlier. They're still dwelling in the land. Joshua 11, 21, 22, at that time Joshua went and cut off the Anakim from the hill country. And Joshua put a ban on them within their cities. There was none of the Anakim left in the land of the children of Israel, except a few were left in Gaza, Gat, and Ashdod. I'll read two more verses. Joshua 15, 13, and 14. Now Caleb, son of Jephunneh, he gave a portion among the children of Judah at the command of Adonai to Joshua. Caleb drove out from there the three sons of Anak, Sheshai, Achiman, and Talmai, children of Anak. So Caleb's taking it to the Anakim. Then the next time we hear about giants is in the example of Goliath, the Philistine, which is where a lot of the Anakim lived. A champion stepped out from the camp of the Philistines named Goliath from Gat, whose height was 6 cubits and a span. That's from 1 Samuel 17:4. Now, what that tells us is that, first of all, 6 cubits in a span is 9.5 feet. So there was still, even after the flood, not just before the flood, when these angelic visitors came to planet Earth and bore children with the human race, with daughters of Adam. But moreover, after the flood, when the whole race was wiped out, all humans were wiped out, per the Bible anyway, the whole human race was wiped out except for 8 people. Noah, his wife, his 3 sons, and their wives. Now, people will say then, and I'm often asked this question, because, I'm a rabbi, so people ask me this stuff all the time. The question is, how come there were still Nephilim in the earth? How come there were still giants, whatever you want to call them, Anakim, Rephaim, Zuzim, Zamzumim? You got all these different names, but we're talking about giant people that were 9, 10, 14 feet high. The Greeks wrote about, some things, the Titans, and some of the Greek mythology, as weird as it is, seems to comport with a lot of these things you read about the Nephilim. But in any case, I'm often asked that question. How did we still have these giants even after the flood? There's 2 theories on that. I wish I could answer it 100%. I can't. It's always going to be somewhat speculative. I'm just telling you that up front. But I'll tell you what I believe. I don't believe the first possibility is that somewhere in the genetic code of those 8 people, there was still Nephilim. Maybe one of Noah's daughters-in-law, maybe she had come. Maybe she had a great granddad who was one of the giants, maybe. And, it is entirely possible that the human race as we know it is not a pure race. That if there has been some intermingling, then, we may not be. And that would tend to explain possibly why Yeshua often referred to himself emphatically as Ben Adam, which means son of man. Because he was son of God. Why did he keep saying that he's Ben Adam, son of man? Maybe he was trying to make the point that he is pure. You know, he's not only pure spiritually, but pure genetically. We would need that for there to be a new humanity, a new Adam, start all over. And that's exactly what has happened with him. So I don't know, but the more likely theory, this is the one that I tend to think, you know, is true, is that they came back. What happened in the ancient time? There were visitors that came. They intermingled. They interfaced, as we say in modern language. They interfaced. Most literally, they did interface with mankind. Well, they're still doing it. They came back after the flood. Flood didn't wipe them out because they came from somewhere else. They weren't just sitting around on the earth like us necessarily. And so if it's like that, then they wouldn't have been wiped out. And so also, if it's like that, it could be that it's still going on. It could be that this generation right here and now is being influenced in some way by angelic beings, good ones and bad ones, angels and demons. How that all works, I couldn't tell you. I couldn't tell you how it all works. But I feel that the evidence is strong, that it's been there from the beginning and it's still there. Our lives belong to God, but it doesn't seem that way because since the beginning, since the Garden of Eden, when we were led by Satan into a whole different experience, ever since then, human life on earth is being manipulated and influenced by other beings. So now I'm getting into, you know, what does it mean for us? And then lastly, I'm going to get into what we can do about it, because I guarantee you there is something we can do about it. There is hope and there is good news. There always is. And so I want to just talk a little bit here about something called mesmerism. Okay, now in the 1700s, there was this guy, and his name was Franz Mesmer. Franz Mesmer, and he was German-born, and he really made his name in Vienna, but then in the beginning, but then he really got big in Paris in the late 1700s. And this guy developed a theory called animal magnetism. And it's basically the gist of the theory. He claimed that there was some force in the world, in the earth, some kind of a force. It was kind of like, he explained it kind of like a magnetic force in between animate and inanimate objects, and that it was being dictated or ruled over by the movement of the celestial bodies. Okay, now I'm not going to burden you with all the ins and outs of how he thought that worked. I don't really know them anyway, and that's not the important thing. We do know that the moon determines the tides, doesn't it? Somehow the movement of the moon brings the oceans in and out, in and out. So, you know, there is some truth to the notion that things on Earth are affected by the movement of planetary bodies. And the ancient cultures, which were all pagan, Egypt, Greece, Rome, I say that, but, you know, there was always a few people like Abraham, but he's not the only one. There are others we'll never know, who knew that there was one God, even in those dark times. I don't know if I should call them dark times because these are dark times too. You know, even though we have the Bible and the good news spread to the whole earth, and you know, we have mass communication, everybody reads, everybody knows stuff. These times are about just as dark as they ever were. Look at the 20th century, World War I and II. There were more people killed in the 20th century in war than in all of history put together. That's an amazing statistic. I know I have quoted that a few times in these webinars, but I'll probably never stop with that one. I'm shocked by that, but it's true. Now, the thing is that in the ancient cultures, in their religion, which was paganistic, they believed that the moon and the stars and the planets were affecting life on Earth, okay? And you can see it in the structures that they built. These pyramids that they built and other things that they built that we don't know how they built them or why. But as I mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, you can see their religious ideas shining through, okay? And they also, in their pantheon of gods, they developed their belief about these different gods to a great extent based on the different planets and the different constellations and the way that they moved around. You know, the Mayans, for example, they obsessed over the movement of the planets and the stars. They had a very sophisticated and very accurate calendar, and their buildings were built in accordance with what they knew about the movement of the celestial bodies. We're dumbfounded by the things that they knew and the calculations that they were able to make. And they knew where the center of the Milky Way galaxy was and stuff like that, you know, we're only able to figure out with telescopes, but they knew. And they supposedly didn't have telescopes. So anyway, the point is that they seem to have this idea, similar to Mr. Mesmer, that life on Earth was being manipulated by beings of greater intelligence than us. And as we've seen from the Bible, there have been visitations, especially way back then. There have been visitations. Now, I don't like the term aliens, because as soon as you say that, you know, you think of ET or, you know, or I don't know, Klingons or something like that. But angelic beings are aliens. They're not from Earth. This is not their planet. God gave dominion over the earth to man. Be fruitful and multiply and have dominion over the earth and replenish the earth and so forth. And we forfeited that dominion, but we're getting it back. The Messiah came and died for the sins of the world, rose from the dead, proving who he was, proving that the powers of this world have no power over him. And his message of hope to mankind was, he who believes in me, though he were dead, yet shall he live. And he who believes in me and lives shall have eternal life. This is the hope of mankind. The ancients knew. We actually know less about this than them. Our understanding of angels and demons and that sort of thing is based on superstition and is highly speculative. Their understanding was more personal and scientific, and you can see it plainly in the structures that they built and in the civilizations that they built. Because here's what happened, folks. Empires like Egypt and Babylon, Greece and Rome, they understood that if they could align themselves with these beings that were manipulating our world, if they could align themselves, then they could rise up and be empowered over other men. They could enslave others, either literally or in more of a metaphorical way, through rulership. And so from the secret knowledge of the pagan religions, Rome and Greece and Babylon and Assyria and Egypt sought to rise up to a place of power, to rule over other men. And their technologies were the key to this whole thing. Look, the pyramid is still here. What, 6,000 years later, maybe more. Nobody knows for sure how old that thing is. It's still here. And that pyramid says something. It makes a statement. That pyramid says, I who built this thing rule over you. Look at this thing. Look at how great it is. Y'all don't know how we built this and put these blocks with razor precision into place and brought them up to great heights and built tunnels inside of it and aligned them to the three stars in Orion's belt and all these things. It says, y'all don't know how we did this, but we did it. And the one who built this, the I who built this thing, rules over you. That's the statement. The medium is the message, and the medium in that case is the pyramid, and it's the message, and it testifies to the builder, and it says, I rule over you. Now, in reality, there's one God who is infinitely powerful. There is one God who is the only God, the only truth, the only power, infinitely higher and greater than any structure on earth. And he says, I am the Lord your God, and beside me there is no Savior. From Isaiah 44. I am the Lord your God, who brought you forth out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. You shall have no gods before me. This is the revelation that came to the Jews. This is the revelation that the Jews brought to the world after building a culture and establishing a heritage upon this revelation. And the Messiah came forth from that culture, from that heritage. The Son of God, the way, the truth, the life, who says, I am the light of the world. All who follow me shall not walk in darkness, but shall have the light of life. And we can look at a pyramid and say, it's nothing. We can look at the Empire State Building. It's nothing. The Capitol, the Washington Monument, the Eiffel Tower. Beautiful, wonderful. We're thankful. Nothing before the mighty God. He is all in all, the one and only. And this is the hope of mankind, to rest in him, to abide in him. Because it didn't stop with the pyramids, did it? Let's take it to Rome. Rome built roads from Britain all the way to somewhere in the east, in North Africa. They built these amazing roads, networks of them, so they could move armies quickly. They built stadiums, coliseums. And those things testify, those roads, those coliseums, those stadiums testify to the one who built them. Those are the mediums. And the medium is the message. And the medium says, I who built this rule over you. You see, this world is under mesmeric hypnotism. The mesmeric hypnotism, which began with the angelic fall, and the angelic invasion. But the hope of the human race has always been the same. One Lord, one God. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and strength. And teach it to your children from our generation to the next. The Son of God came as the living, breathing reality of this truth in the form of a man. And he died for us to set us free from captivity to this world. Our debts are paid. If only we'll receive it. If only we'll abide in him. I really enjoyed sharing with you tonight. I've gone slightly over time, and I appreciate you being here. And if you're coming in on the archive, I appreciate you coming. I'm gonna be signing off in just a moment, but before I do, I just want to encourage you to consider submitting a donation. TempleNewJerusalem.org. You can donate there and help us to continue to bring these webinars. May the peace of the Lord be upon you. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. God bless you in Yeshua's name. Shalom.